We've got some real exciting information to share with you tonight. As Charles mentioned, this is a program that deals with the structures of the DNA and how that translates into a spiritual reality for us. What we've done is we've taken Einstein's theory of relativity and we've applied those principles to the human being on multiple dimensions: the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the social, financial, all aspects of your life. Every dimension of your being has been organized into the system of thought that is expressed through Einstein's theory of relativity. So there's a lot of science behind this. It's based in physics and chemistry and mathematics and biology. And we've integrated all these hard sciences with spiritual principles to come to an understanding of who we are and how we function. We utilize a simple urine and saliva sample, or we can use a questionnaire, and from those two formats we can develop what we call the signature of the soul. So a signature is a means of identifying yourself, and it also represents a pattern. In music, a signature is a pattern, the rhythm that the piece of music takes on. The signature of the soul reflects the patterns and rhythms of our life. So it's really helpful for me to know that I can back up my belief systems with hard science. E equals mc squared. We understand that everything is energy. This field that we live in, this infinite web of information is made out of energy. And this energy comes in three forms. Energy comes in the form of heat, electromagnetism, and mass. Okay. Three forms of energy. That's what this E stands for in Einstein's equation. The M stands for mass, which is right here. And the C squared is a concept. C squared is a concept that represents light. Okay, it's the speed of light. And light is information. You see, that's really what life is. It's information. When you walk into a room, a dark room, you don't know how things are arranged, but when you turn on the light, then you can see things clearly. It gives us knowledge, this light. And the two forms of energy, heat and electromagnetism, is what light is composed of. Electromagnetism and heat. Now, we are beings of light that have taken on bodies of mass. We're formed from the chromosomes. We saw the DNA structure on the video tonight. And that DNA is made out of amino acids. And those amino acids come together and they form these chromosomes. And chromo means color, and zome means body. So the chromosomes are actually, and this is science's language, the chromosome is the body of color. And what is color composed of? Color is light, right? So these are light bodies, these chromosomes, our DNA. Our DNA is actually in the form of mass, these light bodies. The frequency of our spiritual entities, our beings of light, have fallen down from a higher spiritual realm into this lower, denser realm of physicality and taken on this body of mass. In the ancient scriptures, it tells that God created man from the dust of the earth and then breathed into him the spirit of life, and he became a living soul. The word soul means breathing creature. So we come into this body as beings of light the frequency is reduced so it can take on this form of mass, which is the animal body, the flesh. And we have to perpetuate the life in this body by consuming light. And so how do we do that? We eat fruits and vegetables and grains, or animals that eat those things. And those things, the food sources, absorbs the light from the sun through the process of photosynthesis, breaks down the sunlight into carbon molecules, which we then ingest, and we break it down from what it was, a carrot or a chicken or a bean. We break down that form of mass so that we can extract these forms of energy from it, the heat and the electromagnetism, and utilize it in our bodies, changing it from the frequency of whatever it is that we ate into the frequency of a cell that our body can utilize. And this process is called ionization. The process of converting energy at the subatomic level is called a process of ionization. An ion is an electrically charged particle. And all of creation is either positively or negatively charged in every atom. So you have the nucleus, and atoms are what make a molecule, and a molecule makes a compound, which makes the tissues and structures of our body. So through this process of digestion, to the process of breathing in the different forms of mass, which are solids, liquids, and gas, we break down that energy through the process of ionization, taking apart the atoms at the electrically charged particles, breaking it down, and then the liver reconstructs that into a frequency that builds our body. Okay? So in the nucleus of an atom, you have the proton and the neutron. The proton is a positively charged particle, and then you have all the electrons in the orbits, the valence. Okay? And so the electrons carry the negative charge. So you have the positive and the negative. So when we consume food or drink a beverage or breathe in air, our bodies automatically start breaking down those molecules into smaller particles, electrically charged particles, into negative and positive, and then reconstructs it to make us who we are. Is everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the DNA is the bodies of light. The mass is the solid, liquid, and gas. Sometimes I use this as a kind of a joke, but if you've heard this before, just laugh anyway. We are composed of mass, solid, liquid, and gas. We're solid. We can feel the bones and muscles. We can see our structures. Liquid. Well, we are bathed in fluids. Even in the womb, we're surrounded by the amniotic fluids. Every cell is within a fluid base, and that fluid, primarily water with a bunch of trace minerals in it, is what conducts the electricity, the charged particles, through our body. So we're a conductor. We're an electromagnetic being that is chemically driven and emotionally controlled. So how does all of that come together? So we consume mass. We form these solid bodies from the chromosomes, from the bodies of light, the light frequency. The spirit comes in to the fetus, into the flesh. And then when we take our first breath, we become a living soul, taking on all of a sudden all of these different attributes of our self-identity. So we're liquid, and we're solid, and we're gas. We also have gas. Sometimes we wish we were a little more liquid, and sometimes we wish we had a little less gas. So there's a joke. But that's what we are. We're made out of these, and all three of these forms of energy are what our bodies are made out of. You know that the heat, we have body temperatures, and when you void urine or stool or tears, it's warm. You're losing energy in the form of heat in those fluids and in those body excrements. Electromagnetism, everybody has been shocked by rubbing their feet on a carpet or having your hair stick out like this on charged days. That electromagnetism flows through us. And so how does these forms of energy then translate into the spirit, into the soul. Our soul is the aspect of our being that represents who we are as a living entity. It includes our will, our intellect, our character, our personality, all the attributes that make up who we are as an individual, our self-identity. Okay. The soul expresses emotion, and emotion is actually energy in motion. That's what emotion is. It's energy in motion. It's an electromagnetic force that is created through chemical compounds in our brain. And sometimes that emotion will make us happy, make us glad, make us fearful, make us angry, resentment. All the emotions of the human experience can be identified as this energy in motion. And as that emotion flows through the body, it comes in contact with every cell of your being. Your body is constantly communicating. Every cell, the trillions of cells that make up who you are constantly communicating with one another. And when you're having an emotional experience, one that is generated by conflict, not a happy experience, something that creates stress for you, anger or sadness or resentment or whatever it might be, that emotion starts stimulating those cells, and every cell starts communicating with itself, saying, okay, we're under the influence of this energy, it's moving through our body, and it's stimulating us. The hormones are now running, and all the cells record that situation. Everything that happens to us, everything we experience through the senses, consciously and unconsciously, is recorded in the cellular memory. The DNA is constantly receiving information. It's constantly receiving information. The body records that as an excitement, as something that it likes. So when we're experiencing an emotional conflict, the body is stimulated. And this sets up what we call the body addiction. Okay. By the time you're 5 years old, 7 years old, you've already established an emotional response mechanism that you will rely upon for the rest of your life. How you respond to the conflict emotionally, that emotional pattern that you've established will be repeated again and again and again, because the cells of the body have recorded that situation, and because our DNA is an electromagnetic force, it's constantly broadcasting that information. And because of the magnetism of electromagnetism, it will attract people, places, circumstances, and events to recreate that emotional response, because the body becomes addicted to it. Like attracts like. In the field of science, you have people telling us that opposites attract. But in natural science, like attracts like. If that were not so, we wouldn't have gold mines and silver mines and coal mines. Those elements which all of life is made out of, the mass that we talked about is all of the elements in the periodic table, the ones that we know and the ones that we don't know. Calcium, phosphorus, potassium, gold, silver, zinc, right? Oxygen, hydrogen, boron. All of those elements have a charge. And the reason we have silver mines, gold mines, and all these other elements coming together is because the atomic magnetic force of those elements draws and attracts the same elements. So they all come together. Everybody with me? These elements all come together, attracting the same of its kind. Like attracts like. If you look at herds of cattle and flocks of geese and schools of fish, right? They attract the same kind of. It's not where you have a duck, a goose, a fish, and a turtle all coming together, right? You don't see that. You see flocks of geese, you see herds of buffalo and schools of fish. So like attracts like, and the same thing is true in our bodies. The energy that was set in motion through the conflict that we experienced at age 5 has an electromagnetic charge, and it starts broadcasting. We're always sending out vibes, and that broadcast is like a signal on a radio station. And people can tune into it. on an unconscious level, you start attracting people, places, circumstances, and events into your life to recreate the emotional conflict, the emotional charge that you experienced, that energy that was flowing through you at age 5. And the way you respond to that energy is repeated again and again and again until you recognize it and see it for what it is. See, all the while, you don't know on a conscious level that you're just repeating the same emotional patterns. You can't recognize it because you can't see it. And it looks different in the illusion because the people, the places, the circumstances, and events have all changed. But the response emotionally, the energy behind it, is always the same. It's a repeat. The conflict you experienced was not something that you enjoyed. But the body cannot qualify that situation. The body can only quantitatively respond to it. The hormones are flowing, and the cells are being stimulated, and the DNA records every situation. It records the energy of that, and then it broadcasts it out. Now, the mind, however, what we call the mind's desire, can qualify the experience. The mind knows that the experience you're having is not a pleasurable one. You can qualify it, and you can say, you know, at age 5, even a youngster can know when they're not enjoying an experience. If they're being abused, or they've been neglected, or there's fear, or there's anger, you know in your mind that it's not something you want to experience. So there becomes, because we live in a world of dichotomies, remember the positive and negative ions? There's a dichotomy there. Okay, there's the one with there's the concept of one with the two aspects, equal but opposite perspectives of the one. And everything in life is created based on this dualism. So you've got the duality here, the dichotomy. This is what we call a dichotomy, where you have a single concept and two equal but opposite perspectives. So you have the concept of gender, you have male and female. You have the concept of direction, east and west, or north and south. So you've got these dichotomies. There are actually 64 dichotomies that we are aware of. These 64 dichotomies provide us with relationships of existence. So we can, when we experience reality, we can see the relationship between things, so we can understand, the conceptual world that we live in, the male and the female. We can understand the dichotomy of chemistry, acid and alkaline. We can understand the dichotomy of philosophy. This is one of the most famous, to be or not to be. Okay? And so there are 64 of these dichotomies. 64 dichotomies. And these 64 dichotomies are tied to the 64 codons of the DNA. Now, a codon is based of 3 pairs. Okay, the core concept, and then the 2 equal but opposites. So there's a trinity created that's built into all of creation. Within the atom, you have the nucleus, the positive and the negative. Okay, there's the 3 aspects. In every dichotomy, there's a core concept, and then the 2 equal but opposite perspectives of that concept. And so there's these 3 key positions: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Right? The mother, the father, the child. And no matter where you look, even at the most basic components of life, this trinity exists. And so in the DNA, it's also true. The DNA, when these polypeptides come together, these amino acids, they form what we call a triplet, a codon. And so whenever you're having an experience, one of these 64 dichotomies is going to be the base concept that you're living through. It could be the dichotomy of philosophy, dichotomy 1. You may be doing much and having little. To be, to do, and to have. It may be the dichotomy of knowledge. Knowledge being in the core, the unknown being in the cause, and the known being in the effect. So if you're having an experience at age 3, age whatever, age 33, one of these concepts is being experienced, and it's encoded actually in your DNA. So if it's the concept of the unknown, knowledge, the unknown, then whatever it was at the cause age, the conflict, when that conflict, emotional conflict first occurred, the concept of not knowing and how you responded to not knowing is going to be recorded in your DNA by one of these codons, these pairs of codons, of these 64 codons, and then it constantly repeats over the years. We can look at a person's signature of his soul, and we can actually chart the years that that pattern has repeated. We can see if it's a 2-year pattern, a 6-year pattern, a 5-year pattern, a 12-year pattern. We can see how often that conflict came back again. When your DNA transcribes itself, comes apart and comes together in sequential order, because life is sequential, moment after moment after moment, and that's how the DNA comes together. These codons come together in a sequence. It's not just random, but they come together in a sequential order. And so the important thing is that we're able to see what that sequence looks like, and when these patterns, when these conflicts will repeat themselves. We see when it happened in the past, how old you were, and when the next year occurred. So if at age 3 you had your first conflict, and then say it's a 3-year pattern, and then again at age 6, and then again at age 9, and again at age 12, and then at age 15, we can actually chart these years and then tell you which conflict, which one of the dichotomies you're experiencing or you're under the influence of. So this is pretty remarkable that we've been able to associate the 64 codons of the DNA with the 64 dichotomies. So this is the computer program of our biological computer. Our DNA has this program that's running in it that has been established not just at age 3, but in fact you came into this incarnation with that DNA. And so all of the energies that are tied to that DNA, all the light, all the information from all the lives past, from the very beginning of creation, when you were part of the One, everything that you've experienced through the millions and billions, who knows how many years, is recorded in your DNA, and you're carrying that with you. So we can tap into this, and we can see these patterns. We can see the concepts of the conflict that you've experienced. You don't have to tell me anything about your life. And in your chart, through your urine and saliva, or through the questionnaire that we utilize, I have the whole story, the whole emotional history, or herstory. History, her story. I can see what it is. And making this information available to us allows us to see what choices we're making based on this programming. Are we making decisions here and now based on old conditioning that we're not even conscious of, that is perpetuating this body addiction? Or are we able to step into the core? There are these three key aspects I'm going to show you now, are cause, core, and effect. So we've got the three key positions. Core is the infinite, cause is the past, and effect is the present. The dichotomy, the core concept of the dichotomy, let's say it's dichotomy 1, which is philosophy. To be or not to be. You may be doing much, and the effect is you're having little. Okay? So the cause represents the mind's desire versus the body's addiction. You wanted to do something at age 3 that you weren't allowed to do. Your mom said, no, you can't do that. You're gonna, or you're gonna, you're gonna be in the bathtub without your puppy dog. And, we didn't like that. And the effect always is the do want, don't get, or the don't want, do get. Does everybody get that?
No.
The do want, don't get. Here, you want this? No, you can't have it. Here, take this. You don't want it. Take it, take it. Don't want, do get.
Right.
Okay, so there's the two. Do want, don't get. Don't want, do get. That's always the effect. It's the if-only scenario. If only this, if only that. Mind's desire versus body's addiction is the cause. That's what sets it up. And then that anchors in the core, which is where your strengths lie. The core is that infinite aspect of who you are on a soul level. See, I knew that was coming. That's why I paused.
That was the don't want to get.
Yeah. So we have these three key positions, and so at this certain age, at the cause age, you're having this experience where you're meeting resistance and there's a conflict, and you're called upon your strength. So in the core is all about our strengths versus our weaknesses. The core represents the plan for our life and the plan against our life. There's a plan for every one of us. We come here with a specific purpose. We come into this world to fulfill a certain destiny. But if we're not allowed to be who we are, and we're not taught to understand who we are, then we end up doing a lot and ending up having little that has to do with our core concept. We lose track of our soul purpose. So we've got the strengths versus the weakness in the core. Again, the dichotomy at play. We've got the plan for your life versus the plan against your life at play. And then you have the effect, which is a do want, don't get, and a don't want, do get. So there's three key positions. So anytime you're having an experience, one dichotomy of the 64 is creating, building the outside world around you. Attracting, the DNA is attracting people, places, circumstances, and events to create in the world of illusion the reality that you were conditioned by at this cause age, and then it repeats itself, whether it's 3 years or 6 years, it repeats itself. And so having this information, we can see what choices we're making. Are emotions driving us, or are we in control? See, the emotion is that energy in motion. And it's a good thing to have, emotion, but we want to be in control of that emotion. That emotion is powerful. Emotion can create whatever it is that your mind desires. Or that emotion can perpetuate the body's addiction, the pain body. See? Because it's working very well. The energy in motion is composed of electromagnetism, heat, and it drives the mass, our behavior, how we respond physically, how we react. Now we know that because we're made out of chromosomes, we're bodies of light, right? Chromo and zone, we're bodies of light. And we know that light travels as fast as it does because there's very little that can resist light. Yet, we meet with all kinds of resistance when we're trying to manifest our mind's desire. So if we have a thought, if our mind has a desire, and we're putting that thought out into this field of information, then why is it that that desire, that thought, meets with so much resistance if it has the capacity to manifest at the speed of light and faster? What's stopping it? Well, it's the unconscious, invisible belief system. What's happening here on the cause are the fibs, the lies, the false, invisible belief systems. These are preventing us from manifesting our mind's desire. The resistance that we meet with is the conditioning that we experienced at the young age when we were first conditioned to believe that we can't have it our way. We can't do that. It has to be, this way, where your strength is not utilized, where you're not able to manifest your full potential. Is everybody with me? So these codons in the DNA are constantly firing and broadcasting the information that you were programmed with at a very young age. And it's happening unconsciously. You're not even aware of it. So if you become aware of it, if you had the information in your hand, then think of how much power that you would have over your life then. To know what to expect, to know what's coming, to be able to respond to it from a place of knowledge, a place of strength. You know, if you're walking down the street every day, you walk down this street, and you get to this corner, and every time you get to that corner, somebody jumps out and creates an emotional response in you. They hit you with a frying pan, or, you know, they scream at you, or they startle you, they create an emotional response. And every day you walk down that street, and you meet with that same incident. But you forget it the next day. And so here you go walking down the street again the next day, and the guy jumps out and hits you over the head with a frying pan. It's like, whoa, what happened? And all this emotion comes up, the anger, the fear, whatever it is. Now, it could be any situation that you're walking down the street of life, and you're faced with people, places, circumstances, and events that hit you with this frying pan. You know, whether it's you overdraft your account, or, you know, you wreck your car, or, you know, you have a fight with your boss or your spouse, or whatever causes the emotion. It's happening again and again and again. Well, I'm here to tell you, we're beings of light. We're not here to experience, we weren't designed to experience life like that. We're creative beings, created in the image of the Creator, God. And what is God? The Scripture tells us God is light, God is love, God is peace and joy. Well, these are what the things we should be experiencing in life. But we meet with all this resistance, experiencing everything else but that. Because we don't remember that when we walk down that street, when we get to that corner, boom, we're going to get hit on the head again. But if you could remember what it looks like, feels like, sounds like, if you could remember that before you get to the street corner, you could cross the street. You could go from the stress avenue to the bliss avenue. You can make a choice that you're not going to engage in that emotional conflict, and you can cross the street. Now, a lot of people already, you know, our age are already experienced in controlling their emotions. But you're not in control of what you're attracting into your life. You're still attracting all of that. Who needs to constantly be exposed to all of this emotional trauma? Yes, you may be in control of your emotions as you walk down the street of life. But wouldn't it be nice if as you walk down that street, you didn't attract people, places, circumstances, and events that would constantly challenge your strengths? Constantly challenge your strengths until you become exhausted. Again and again and again, those traits that you have in your core that you didn't have to develop, this is called the soul pattern, the strengths that you possess inherently that are part of your makeup, spiritual makeup. You didn't have to learn them, you didn't have to develop them, you didn't have to hone these as skills. This is who you are. It's an expression of who you are. And rather than expressing who you are at the soul level, you're walking in what we call the stress pattern. It's the soul pattern versus the stress pattern. So we don't make the connections that allow us to walk in the soul pattern of our strengths. We're constantly being challenged, meeting with this resistance, meeting with these conflicts, and so we have to utilize our strengths again and again until they become exhausted, and then the stress pattern becomes stronger, and your life becomes more and more unmanageable, and you become less and less efficient at manifesting your mind's desire and walking in the plan for your life.